Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're diving into a book that every small business owner needs on their shelf. It's Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When the Stakes Are High. And it's by four people, Joseph Grenny, Carrie Patterson, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzer. I think Al's probably ticked off that he's always last. I don't know.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Third edition, by the way. So if you're looking on Amazon, go for the third edition. Oh,
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, this is going to be a great one, Rich. If you've ever been in that situation where the emotions are high stakes and the stakes are enormous and you're no idea what to say, this book has the answers. And as small business owners, those moments happen all the time, all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and this is a book I recommend to all of the executives I coach, all the business owners, just because you're going to have these conversations. You're going to have them with your
Yeah.
employees. You're going to have them with your
Vendors.
client vendors. Um, People get ticked off, or you need
Yeah.
to have a crucial conversation with someone. So let's start out and say, what's a crucial conversation? So, BJ, what's your take on what makes a conversation crucial?
Well, I'm going to lean on our authors because they pinpoint three areas of the book: high stakes, varying opinions, and strong emotions. These days, we're seeing a lot of people with much stronger emotions,
Yeah.
and it can be pretty crazy. What about you, Rich? Can you think of an example of um, where a conversation suddenly became high stakes without you even expecting it?
Yeah, I remember back when I was leading a team at Gardner, and I had to tell them that we needed to make a major shift in direction, a strategy
Wow.
for our
Yeah.
project. And a subordinate on the team became violently opposed. He was yelling in
Oh,
front
wow.
of everybody right at me. This is ridiculous, in front of the team. And it was a scary time because I had to just sit and acknowledge and say, well, we're still going. I ended up asking him, can you stick around? And we sat down. I said, I totally understand your perspective. I understand where you're coming from, but your behavior, you should never do that. And I'm just giving
Yeah.
you, and I kind of told him he was right to a certain extent, but I told him his behavior was wrong. So I broke the two apart.
Yeah.
So
That's a very good way to look at it.
yeah, so here's
Yeah.
one to think about, BJ. How do you handle when emotions run high and when you're tempted to avoid the issue entirely? And I do that too. I tend to
Oh,
avoid the issue.
yeah. And I try to like catch myself that way, right? I I would de-escalate the situation. And I always do the old pause thing. And then I say, bold of you to make a stand, Jeff. Let's take that offline and really give it some thought. I think it's a topic I want everyone to give their opinion on and perhaps to do some research. I always think to myself, don't don't fly off the handle, Rich. Jeff. Bring it back.
I never fly off the handle.
No, no, you're not a flyer off the handler guy,
No.
and that's for sure. Now, one of the insights that I wanted to point out in the book is start with heart. And I got to tell you, I didn't think they were going to go this way. I
Yeah.
was really surprised. And it's about clarifying your motives before you even start a conversation. And Rich, I have a really important question for you. You know, how do you personally check your intentions before you dive into this difficult conversation? This tough conversation.
Yeah, BJ, that's a great question. And you have to do this. See, everybody just
Oh,
they I want to dive in and solve the problem, and you can't. So I
yeah,
usually pause and ask myself, what's the real goal here? What are we really trying to do? What do I want for myself? But what do I want for the other person? And most importantly, what do I want for this relationship to go on? Because if my
nice.
motives aren't clear, or constructive, I have to take that moment to recalibrate, to really think it through before I say anything. So don't say anything. Think about it. Don't make it all about you. And that's where I see a lot of managers. They're like, it's they become the
Personally
victims.
affronted.
Yeah, but it's like it's not your situation. Take their perspective into account before you speak. Try to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's a
Here,
good thing. That's a good.
here's one for you, BJ. Okay, what happens
Yikes.
when you realize mid conversation that your motives might not be as pure as you thought? Okay, how do you course correct?
Yeah, that's where the word pivot comes in. I have to say, I use humor to diffuse some situations like this. I admit it. And sometimes I look at it as a teachable moment, and I will stop. I literally will stop mid sentence and say, "Oh, let me check myself here," and I'll get the veer to happen because I don't want to go down that road and have to, backpedal. I'd rather cut it and move on. So direct. I'd rather be direct. That's my big thing. Now I'm giving you a curveball because you gave me one. How do you balance staying clear with your goal without being too rigid and controlling?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
uh, uh,
And I am rigid and controlling. I have to be honest. I am rigid and controlling. And that's we all have to work on things. And I think
yeah,
this is the one when I recognize this, I focus on the outcome. And I have to
yes,
stay open to new perspectives because they might have a better idea than I do. And that's something that I teach my clients. Remind myself that collaboration often leads to better solutions than sticking to my plan. Okay. Yeah,
yes,
I try to be flexible and in the moment. Sometimes the other person solves the problem themselves. And I
yep,
just sit there and I look great and I go, that sounds great. Go do it. So
right,
sometimes
right.
shutting up really helps out.
Shutting up. I like it.
So
and
our
and
sec,
I think,
yeah,
yeah, sorry, I just to follow up on that, I think the idea of being direct is so important in those moments. You did a great job of just like letting their idea percolate a little bit, for sure, but then being direct and keep the conversation going. Very good, very good.
absolutely. Well, our second insight is from the book is master your stories. I love that term, master your stories. So what it is it's all about separating the facts from the assumptions or judgments we often create. Okay. BJ, have you ever caught yourself creating a story that ended up being way off?
Oh, oh, definitely, definitely. This happens when I'm not mindful of my audience. Like I get a sense. You can sense it. Am I right, Rich? Even
Yeah.
Rich does much larger presentations, so sometimes he doesn't see everybody's face. But you do see the first couple of rows. Um, but I don't know. I can sense it, and then I can course correct.
Yeah.
But if I'm not sure, I just own up to it. I own up to it on the spot because I feel being direct is the best way of doing things. Um, and that's the most important. Now, here's my question to you. How how do you train yourself to catch those assumptions in the moment before they derail your conversation? Because Rich, think about it. You have these big groups, and so you have no clue what they're going to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely no clue. It's like, how do you react?
Well, you've here's my little secret. That's a good question.
Oh,
um, I practice pausing before reacting, and I do that in front of audiences all the time. And
okay.
pausing is a great way to focus everyone's attention on you. Our natural inclination is to answer the question right after they finish. Oh yeah, and having that 1, 2, 3 second pause shows that you're
Yeah.
thinking, and it focuses everybody on you. So when I feel myself jumping to conclusions, I usually ask, what are the real facts here? What story am I telling myself about them? And this quick reflection helps me separate assumptions from reality. And that's something that in crucial conversations you have to realize is that we have a lot of assumptions. We have our own
Yeah.
reality from what really is the real reality. And this is really hard for me to do because my
Oh.
natural personality is to tend to fix problems. It's built into my hardwiring. I just
Mm.
fix problems. That's why I'm a coach. I fix things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pausing is hard, and that's why it's almost an act. I have to pause. So that's what you should do is pause all the time. So here's another for you, BJ. What do you
Uh-oh.
do when someone else is clearly making up a story about you during a conversation? How do you address that?
Again, humor. I will say, "Oh, I wish I had done that." Not me, not me. And then I spell out the encounter.
Yep.
So I react as quickly as I can. If I could see their conversation kind of going off a little bit, I'll prepare myself to handle something like that. I always remain calm and collected. Calm and collected. I bring them into the conversation too and say, what did you do?
Yep.
Kind of thing. But I definitely try to do that. Let me flip this. Let me flip this on you, Rich. How do you help an employee or a team member see the difference between the facts of their assumptions without sounding too condescending? Ugh, that's a hard
Uh,
one.
how many times have you been in conversations where people make you feel that they're condescending to you? You're like, oh, joy. Um, I focus on what I call curiosity and collaboration.
Ew.
I might say something like, let's look at what we know for sure versus what we interpret. Okay. Can we break
Sure.
this down together? So
Yeah.
it's not just me telling them what reality is or what I think. It's like, let's work together. This keeps the tone neutral and encourages shared problem solving. I have to
Right.
say, I am really good. I was terrible before at pausing. I'm really good at this because
Love it.
I am collaborative by nature and I like working with someone to solve a problem. So this comes naturally to me.
Yeah. And I think that this, in our business, we call it brainstorming. We immediately will go into that mode, not even thinking about it. We go into that mode, and that's where we get some of the best ideas that we do it. And we keep the conversation de-escalate. It's nice and calm. So it's awesome. So the third insight, make it safe. And I got to tell you, this is a huge one, Rich. Creating safety in a conversation. If people feel unsafe, they either shut down or become defensive. You've asked for it if you don't make them feel safe. How do you spot the signs when somebody is feeling that way, is feeling unsafe?
Yeah, well, when you have to call EMS, or no, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But uh, that's a great point. That's a great point. And as a manager, you need to watch for changes in body language, like crossing arms, avoiding eye contact, or shifting in their seat, or in their behavior, like speaking less or responding defensively. You really need to use your eyes and ears to understand tone changes, like becoming overly quiet or sharp, are also big clues.
Yeah, yeah.
I try to be perceptive and watch people's body language, and I'll even call them out on it. I'll say, "Is everything okay?"
Yeah.
And it's
He has to
like,
use that on me often. Yeah.
is everything okay? Are you okay? What's going on? And people naturally, oh, everything's fine. I go, I don't think so. I don't think so. What's going on? So here's a follow-up, BJ. What's your go-to strategy for restoring safety when the conversation starts to go off the rails?
And I think this is a little like what I had talked about before, where you definitely use that pause, but you also will say, let's take a minute out here, guys. Let's
Yeah.
take a minute out. We're here. I need you here. I'm putting my hands up and down, and just by saying that, someone will know that they went a little too crazy,
Yeah.
right? And especially don't want a team member to team member fight. No, no, no. That's not what we're all about, right, Rich?
Absolutely. I call it asking a permission question. You're pausing
Yeah,
and
yeah,
interrupting and saying, do you mind if I ask you a question? Or do you mind if we dig a little deeper? Or do you mind if I expand on that? Or do you mind if I paraphrase what you just said? Asking a permission question stops it
yeah.
and and it gives you the floor to tone people down, especially if this conversation starts to go off the rails.
Yeah. And I think it's an uncomfortable pause you can make.
Yeah.
They all feel it. If they've ever been in a meeting with you and the uncomfortable pause occurs, they're preparing.
Yeah.
They know that you are about to bring that conversation back to where it should be. And about preventable measures? How do we create an overall climate and culture in your business where safety is a norm during conversations, Rich? Think about that.
Yeah, that's great, and especially in times like today where certain people are overly touchy about things. There's this victim attitude and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I lead by example. Okay, I try to stay calm.
Okay.
I try to actively listen. Most of all, I show respect in every conversation. I'm not flippant. I don't like throw what they're saying out. I listen, I paraphrase, and I show respect in every conversation. I
Nice.
encourage open dialogue. Look, I'm a coach, okay? I
Right.
encourage my clients to have an open dialogue, celebrate honest feedback, and clarify that mistakes are learning opportunities. We've heard that so many times, but they
I
really
know.
are not punishable offenses. And I actually would say to people, look, I'm not here to punish you. We're here to learn from this. I'm learning,
Right.
you're learning. So
Yeah.
it's true. So let me ask this: is there ever a time when making it safe feels impossible? What then?
Oh. I think you have to completely shut down.
Yeah,
You have to completely shut down that situation. And as a boss, as a leader, that's part of what has to happen.
yeah,
You have to let it not go forward.
yeah. You got to
And you
walk away.
either, yeah, walk away. And you might say, you know what? We need to end this conversation right now before we regret it and just move on. You know what's so interesting? I thought of when you were talking, you're talking about being present in a
Yeah,
conversation, right? When a person goes off the rails and they're crazy, they're not present.
yeah,
You know what they've just done? They're dragging up something in their past, bringing it into the conversation, and they're losing it. They actually appreciate you bringing it back. What do you think, Rich?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. People are never mad about what they're really mad about. And
Thank
it's
you.
it's usually baggage that they've been carrying. And
Right.
this is the fuse that lit them off, that set them off, and they're angry. And so as a manager, if people are just off the rails losing it, I just go, I'm going to end the conversation. I'm walking away. You need to calm down and let's discuss this later. And
Mhm.
what that does is that brings a seriousness of, uh-oh,
Hmm.
I might have stepped over the line.
Right. I'm an
And
adult.
and also from the manager's perspective, it's like, I'm not going to put up with this. Okay. Like this is a job. This isn't like, I mean, again, there are jobs that are life and death, but we're not trying to save lives here. Stop getting angry about, your email's not working
This
or something like that.
deliverable.
Yeah. This deliverable or something.
I had one boss who said, "Oh my God, how many suitcases are you going to bring into this conversation?"
Yeah.
And I thought, "Holy cow, that is so awesome!" But again, completely diffused the whole thing,
Yeah.
and everybody, was able to kind of get back to it. So anyway, it
Well,
happens.
Our fourth and final insight from Crucial Conversations is you need to move to action. Okay. And it's one of the most practical takeaways from the book is it's not just about talking. It's about deciding what happens next. What are we going to do
Yeah.
from now on? BJ, what's your favorite way to ensure a follow through after a tough conversation?
I just love to be able to get people to collaborate on ideas that we may have had in that meeting. Um, but I also try to make sure we kind of bend back to what our original goals and objectives are. And it usually works. It usually works. People get emotional or excited in a meeting. So it's not all bad. Some crucial conversations are based on um, a drastic sales drop, a social media post that went wrong, things like that. And in my mind, if they can team it, it's not a problem anymore. Yes, we had to have this conversation, but it's not a problem anymore. And Rich, how would you handle a conversation? How would you leave it with a
Yeah.
plan? But other people don't always follow through. So, how can you be the one?
Yeah, a lot of managers tend to, okay, we've had the conversation and we're done with it. And I'm like, no, you're not.
No, no,
No, you're not.
no.
I follow up quickly with a reminder, okay, phrased
Me
as
too.
a collaborative check-in. The magic word there is collaborative. Hey, I just
Yes.
wanted to touch base on what we discussed. Is there anything getting in the way of moving forward? Okay. This opens the door for dialogue without sounding accusatory. Again, we're collaborative. We're working together to solve the problem. A lot of people that get mad or you have this conversation, they're looking to you to solve the problem. And you're like, no, you and I are going to do it together. So taking action and checking in really helps.
Mm,
Here's a
definitely.
twist. Here's a twist, BJ. You ready?
Oh no.
What's
Oh no.
your process for holding yourself accountable to action steps you agree to?
It's right after the meeting, I take notes and I just give myself a minute to think. And I outline how I want to follow it up. You're thinking of obviously the solution and keeping that solution in mind. And with the meetings now are all transcribed,
Yeah.
it just makes my job so much easier. I can just go down that list and kind of, get all the questions and give them back to my teams. Um, it's wild because you have to do it as quick as you possibly can. And to your point, that's where some people fall down. They just think it's going to magically happen. No, it's not. So you have to really be a good leader. So here's one for you. When you have multiple stakeholders in the same conversation, how do you ensure everyone's in line as to what's happening next?
Well, I'm probably going to parrot what you just said, BJ, which is
Awesome.
I also summarize the key points and decisions, and it's so much easier now with AI. In conversations, it'll just
I
summarize
know.
everything and confirms everyone's understanding. Like, let's recap. Here's what we have agreed to, and who's responsible for what. This is built into my personality. Does that
Yes.
align with everybody's expectations? This avoids confusion and ensures accountability. So when we walk out of that room, everybody's on the same page. So it really works out well. So,
It sure does. Oh my gosh.
all right, BJ, this has been a long one, but I think
I know.
this is a critical book. You've got to get this book. All right. This was a fun one. What's your big takeaway from Crucial Conversations that you'd recommend every small business owner to start using this week?
You know what I want everyone to do? I want them to practice mastering your stories. Before reacting in any tough situation, pause and separate the facts from your assumptions. Challenge yourself with questions like what else could be true? This simple shift is going to transform how you handle high stakes interactions. What's yours, Rich?
Collaboration. Don't
Thank
try to do
you.
it. Yeah, don't try to do it all yourself. Build them into it because you're growing your people when you collaborate. They're learning how to solve problems rather than you trying to solve the problem all the time. So,
yeah, that is so true.
and for our listeners, here's the question for you. What crucial conversation have you been avoiding that you need to tackle this week?
We would love to hear your answers. Drop us a comment or send us a message. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with a fellow business owner. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
And we always like to leave the podcast with, go out and buy the book, Crucial Conversations. I have it I have it right in my bookcase here. I access it constantly. I tell every one of my clients who manages people, go out and buy this book and read it. It is the Bible for managing people. So folks, let's keep the podcast momentum going. Share this episode on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and TikTok with the hashtag The Best Small Business Show. Spread the word and keep our community growing by subscribing to our show.
Folks, ready to take your business up to the next level? Reach out to Rich G at richg.com for top-tier business coaching that drives results.
And folks, for all things brand marketing and website design, contact my podcast partner, BJ Flagg, at newrenew.com and make your marketing remarkable.
And a big shout out to our editor and producer, Richard Scalzo, who makes us sound so professional in every episode. Have an unbelievable week. Crush those goals, read those books, and hey, we'll catch you on the next episode.